Welcome to another episode of Red and Black, where your conservatism is not just the color that you're used to. I'm Lenny McAllister, and Jeff Charles isn't here because he went the next week to go try to find the taste that used to be in Chris Rock's mouth that he slapped in the next week because of Will Smith or something like that. But I do have three people that are here with me this week that want to talk about that smack and some other things that transpired, including the announcement on Friday night that Will Smith is resigning from the Academy, which coming on April Fool's, I don't know if the resignation's the April Fool's joke or the smack and thinking that was going to really go over well with the April Fool's joke. Either way, we have Pastor Shannon Wright filling in for Jeff this week. Priscilla Rondo, I want to go to you first. Good week to you, ma'am. And do you have anything witty or funny to say about whatever that was on Sunday night?
Well, Dr. Metzler gave us a ban on sharing any more jokes as of 48 hours ago. So he would have to give me permission to make jokes about that because he was like fed up with the slap that was heard around the world. But
permission
I will
granted.
Okay. But I will say
embargo. It was not telling you no, it was an embargo until now.
So he was showing some masculine traits there, telling me I couldn't share any more jokes. So I'm just going to have to say that as a black woman.
Hold on, Priscilla. Conservatives don't believe in toxic masculinity. So who the heck are you? I'm calling you Republican card.
Well, that was supposed to be my witty comment about this whole thing. So, hey. And that was not an April Fool's joke, but I will say, as a black woman, I would not want to have my man go slap another man for cracking a joke. So there's something else going on there with our friend Willie. So, yeah, not appropriate.
Pastor Wright, as a woman of the cloth, let's talk about Big Willie style for just a second. You're from Baltimore, though, so they do things a little rough there too. Bloody more murder.
We got a few similarities to that Philly style going on.
Yeah, exactly. So with that said, do you agree with Priscilla? You wouldn't necessarily want your man smacking people over jokes on worldwide television and then cussing at them afterwards?
So my husband grew up in the South Bronx. And there's a different code and way of handling things there. That's as nice as I can put it. I raised my kids to keep your hands to yourself. So in the best of all worlds, I would have preferred that they be able to use their words to handle the situation. But obviously there were some issues going on. And it's good to see a man standing up for his woman. I think the way he did it could have been done differently. And quite frankly, folks were hoping for New Testament Will, and they got Old Testament Will. He handled it the way he saw it and the way he needed to handle it at that time. Would I have done it that way? No. Would I have wanted my husband to? No. And I've always taught my kids to keep their hands to themselves. So,
Dr. Mess, I'm going to exclude you for just a second because I'm sure you'll have something witty to say in just a second. I go back to the ladies on this because can I ask you two a question? You're both wives. Did you really think he stood up for his wife? Because he laughed at first, and that's not standing up for your wife. If you were offended for your wife's honor, you immediately get offended for your wife's honor. And if you were the wife in that situation and you wanted your husband to defend your honor and you looked over and he's giving that big old cheesy Big Willie style laugh that you've seen since Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, would you think that he all of a sudden on a 180 on a dime, all of a sudden went up and tried to play French glove slap tip with his hand? Touche, I challenge you to a duel.
Well, I mean, first of all, what did he do? I mean, Chris Rock laughed and was like, whoa, Willie didn't do anything. He has the arms of a thinking man. He does not have any muscles to him. He's just like, you could blow and he'd just fall over. So there was no strength in his slap whatsoever. Okay, so if he was going to try to do something, he should have done something. Now, I'm not advocating violence. So I do not agree with what he did. And there's something seriously wrong in that relationship. To them, it's normal. They've justified how they have gone about their marriage, and it's been very public, but it appears extremely dysfunctional. And I'm not connecting any dots or crossing any T's with that relationship. It's just odd as odd can be.
Let me rephrase my question. I'm going to redirect the witness, Dr. Metzler. You like that? I know you got a autogram. I'm sure you like that. I'm going to go to you again, Priscilla, because a lot of people that are saying Will Smith did the right thing. He stood up by his woman. Tiffany Haddish. I love seeing a man stand up for a woman, especially a black man standing up for a black woman. He was laughing at first. He was not standing up for her. He was in on the joke and then wasn't in on the joke. So is that exactly standing up for your wife? If that's the first reaction, then you had to kind of look over and be told how outraged you should be.
That's what I'm talking about. There's something wrong in the energy in that relationship, because if he's laughing and he's a comedian and he's going along with the show and he's having a good time, and he didn't think that I don't believe he thought it was offensive. Otherwise he wouldn't have laughed that way. So he didn't think it was offensive. It went over his head, but I don't know. I don't understand why he felt that was appropriate to do at that time, that was his initial reaction. So no, I don't think anything about that is justified whatsoever.
Pastor Wright, what do you think? Because I gotta ask a wife this question. I mean, everybody's praising him for, well, not everybody. There are people that are praising him for standing up for his wife, but he laughed at first. And then again, considering the entanglements that they talked about previously, how much did he really feel inclined like he should stand up for his wife at first? And then maybe that's the real reaction you got. And then he did the 180, which again, is that really standing up for your wife at that point in time?
So, I've been married over 20 years now. And there are times, so let me qualify this. Being a Black female conservative Republican, former vice chair of the state party living in Baltimore, there are situations where you try to laugh things off in situations from folks from all sides of the spectrum. And then when it continues, you start to struggle with that whole laugh thing. So I, not being there, not knowing them personally, I can't say what was he was trying to be a good sport and play it off. What was his wife gave him that look like, you better do something or you're going to have to fight me when we get home. Not being there, I don't know. Clearly his whole mood changed. And it depends. If you saw the edited version, you would assume he was standing up for her. You wouldn't have seen necessarily the angles with the looks from her to him. How that eye roll said a whole bunch. Okay. And that eye roll is where his mood and mode seemed to switch at that point. But just watching it, not being able to see all those things, you would see someone standing up for their spouse. Again, your words are better than your hands. But not having been there, not being in their relationship. I know, like I said, I've been married for over 20 years to my husband. He's my best friend. But there are times, I'll just leave it at that. Like I said, there are different ways they could have handled it. Not being there and involved in all the details, I can't really judge. But I know if I was in a situation where I felt like it was a joke being made that wasn't funny, I would have wanted to see some kind of acknowledgement on my husband's face so that we wouldn't be having round two when we got home.
Well, two things. One, the acknowledgement wasn't on his face at first. That's kind of part of the problem too. It wasn't there on Will Smith's face. So it was quite the opposite. But Dr. Metzler, now I'm going to come to you. There were 350 million reasons why Will Smith had the wrong reaction. Now, do you know what I'm referring to, right?
Yes.
His net worth.
Of course.
When you have been that rich for about 20 years. Now, the first 10 years, he blew his money and he was a knucklehead. And he admits that and he talks about that all the time. That's Independence Day, which was about 1996, 1997. He's been cash, just straight cash. And when you do that, doesn't that buy you a thicker skin, especially when you're in the front row of the Oscars and nominated and favored to win an Oscar in a historic way, which is the reason why they gave you one of the front tables at the Oscars.
Yeah, so I mean, really, this is very simple for me. It's 2 hashtags and a statement. Hashtag number 1 is masculinity. Hashtag number 2 is reclaiming masculinity. Hashtag number 3 is entanglement. And relative to the entire incident, the question for me relative to the entire incident is this. So the marriage is open to everything but a joke. So there we have it.
He just dropped the mic. I was like,
I'm done. I'm done. I'm
feeling that.
I mean, I think that sums up the entire thing. He's obviously suffering from issues of emasculation, and that's the issue. That's why there's the back and forth and the yeah. So there we have it.
But didn't she have a relationship with Chris Rock, like a fling or something?
Among others, yes.
Okay, so right.
That's a nice way to put it.
Maybe Will's touchy. I mean, he's not her first choice. When you see the documentaries, she didn't want to get married to him. She got knocked up and got forced to marry him and not happy.
I don't think she had an entanglement with Chris Rock. I think more along the lines, and this kind of goes to some of the questions that people have been asking previously, and I don't really want to go into the same things that people have been asking as far as if it were Dave Chappelle, would he have done it? If it were, Steve Harvey, would he have done it? If it were Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson instead of Chris Rock, would he have done it? One of the things I want to go into is the fact that, in 2022, with the historic stage up there, what's the obligation of an African-American man, or even still like one of the royal couples, African-American royal couples in Hollywood, to just grin and bear it in that moment versus the old defend your wife's honor? Because there's an argument that people would make that, hey, as an African-American man in that historic moment, your wife should know to just kind of cool it. You should know to just cool it. Even Chris Rock, who, by the way, had the wherewithal to say, do not arrest him, do not have him removed. It would make the situation worse. It seems as though he understood the significance of the night in a way that the Smiths did.
Well, but you're making this too complicated. It's not that complicated. This is about being emasculated. Forget the rest of that. He was the one who, in an article, talked about his girth. Come on. I mean, it's not that complicated. And so given that, this isn't about the historical context. It's not about any of that. It is about him trying to reclaim his masculinity. I'm going to say that, and folks going to say...
But is that not the point, though, Dr. Metzler? I mean, as African-American people, particularly African-American men, if we're reclaiming that type of masculinity, which goes back to one that is seen as being uncontrollable, doesn't have coof, etc., in that type of historic moment, should that not have resonated more in that moment over a joke? When, again, I've read some articles, and I'll bounce it to the ladies after you give your answer, Dr. Metzler. Part of what they said was, you're in roast row. There's a reason why I don't like going to comedians and going to comedian shows, because I don't want to be part of the show. I'll either be in the back of the room or I'll be at home. But if you're in the front of the room with a comedian up there, you're prey. Don't you know that if you're Will Smith, with all the stuff that you put out there publicly already, that I'm sitting here, I am on a high stage. Some of this I'm going to have to let go. And even Chris Rock said it's a G.I. Jane joke. He tried to make it saying, hey, look, this was tame in comparison to what the heck I could have said. I wanted to acknowledge you. and throw you a softball, and here you are up here smacking me anyway.
Well, yeah, but there's a difference here. The difference is if I'm trying to historically reclaim this brute masculinity, what you're not taking into consideration is her. This is the situation. It's not society that emasculated him. She emasculated him relative to the entanglement, relative to her being satisfied or not, and all of those kinds of things. What you are seeing here is family therapy being played out. That's the difference. So I agree with you. Yeah, if it was trying to the tradition, that's not the issue here. It's like we're stepping over the entanglement which she has publicly acknowledged on Red Table, whatever that is, and that's the difference here.
Priscilla, though, I went through this thought of saying, should she have even been there? Because I understand that's his wife, and I get that. But if you know that your spouse put a lot of dirty laundry out there, dirty lingerie out there, it wasn't even laundry. These ain't no sheets. This is the undergarments that are hanging out there for all to see, darn near literally. And you're on the highest stage. Maybe you take one of your 3 kids. Maybe you take somebody that was in the movie with you. Maybe you have the Williams sisters sitting at the table with you to deflect away from the possibility of that happening. Because let's just be honest. In hindsight, with all the stuff that the Smiths have been doing, Priscilla, over the last 2 years, and this Red Table Talk hot mess that it's been, you almost had to know something was going to be said. Something was said earlier in the show. So it's not like it wasn't there.
Yeah, you have to remember, too, that Will Smith is so infatuated with Jada. He loves her. He tolerates her publicly, saying she slept with their son's best friend. I mean, there's something really twisted about him being verbally okay and publicly okay with that, and listening to Jada say, I just wanted to feel good. It had been so long. She's saying this to Will. And to Dr. Metzler's point, she has emasculated him over years and years and publicly shaming him. And we know that the Black male ego is very fragile in America. We have to be really, really careful of how we talk to Black men and how we lift them up and make them feel like they are the warrior and the provider and the spiritual leader in our homes. Well, she doesn't do that to Will. She has taken every opportunity to remind him that he is second class in her life. And so when a woman can just give her husband a look like that, and his reaction isn't to sit closer to her and put his arm around her and whisper something in her ear and say, you know what, baby, you look beautiful tonight. I'm so proud that you're here with me on this special night. He didn't do that. That could have been the way for him to be a man. But for her to have that kind of possessive power over him, that he got up on the national stage and lacked any kind of decorum whatsoever, no grace. It was embarrassing. It has nothing to do with race, in my opinion. It has everything to do with the fact that he lacked class and self-control. And he is going to be paying the price for the decision that he made, and he should pay the price for the decision that he made.
You know, I got to interject. I think that for him to bring his wife, if they are, regardless to how much of their business has been put out on Front Street, if they're trying to work through their relationship and they're trying to stay together and make it better, I think he did the right thing to bring her. I think, yes, they should have both been aware that there was a possibility that they could be the butt of some jokes. I think that being that it was rumored that he may have won, and he did, and he would have had his spotlight opportunity to say some things if he felt like he needed to a few minutes later. I think that would have been a way to do it, especially if he really felt the need to say something. Again, In ministerial work, you do a lot of counseling, and there's a whole
Hold on.
bunch.
I want to get to something that you said, though. You said if they're trying to heal and stay together, it was the right thing to bring her. I'm going to push back on that because I'm going to say, did you look at Twitter and social media after Red Table Talk with the entanglements and all the hashtags and all the jokes and innuendos and everything else? If you're trying to heal, sometimes you protect the person you love while you're trying to heal by not putting them into situations where the wound can be festered over once again.
That's if you're in a place to make those healthy kind of decisions. Clearly, neither one of them are. So to
there's
make a healthy
50 million reasons why somebody could help them make that decision, though, Pastor. I understand what you're saying.
You're right. Somebody should.
Somebody should have said, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And you're right. Somebody should have, but nobody did until after the comment about how the devil will come at you when you're in your highest place to bring you back down. But I kind of feel like the whole Red Table Talk is a cry for help. Honestly, it's saying you're in the house with me. I'm not getting what I need from you. I don't know maybe even how to tell you what I need, what I want, what I think. So I'm going to tell the world because it's a cry for help. No one in a healthy relationship wants to take their dirty laundry and put it on the table, take a picture of it and share it. So it's clear they're not in a healthy place. Either one of them.
Well, it may be a cry for help. It's also a cry for cash. Because as it relates to that production, he is going to be on there talking about that with her. She ain't doing Red Table Talk for free.
No.
And so it may be a cry for help and also a cry for cash. This is a cash-making machine.
But I don't think it's a cry for help. And I'm not trying to be judgmental on where people are spiritually and from a character perspective, etc. But back to this entanglement. This wasn't just some dude. This wasn't, hey, I was on a movie set with XYZ movie star, and we had these 3 love scenes, and I'm sorry, but after rubbing up against me for these 3 love scenes, we kind of took it a little too far at the after party after a couple of drinks. This was my son's friend, who means this kid's old enough to be my son.
Your son.
And he's my son's friend, and I had this going on, and it was probably well known within the household, which probably caused tension in 2 generations of the household and probably 3 generations of the household, probably her mama and her mama-in-law, as well as her kids, and then her husband, and then it became public. That's more to me than a cry for help. There's a lot of things going on, and Will Smith, I can understand the anger behind the smack, even though, you keep your hands to yourself, because he's dealing with that whole situation publicly and then taking it to the Oscars as both a husband, but also as a father, where your son, for the rest of his life, got to hear from his peers about this whole entanglement with his mother. Let's go back to the Devontae West situation with LeBron James. If you all remember that. Basketball player, played with LeBron James with the Cleveland Cavaliers. There were rumors about one of his teammates and his mom. Mm-hmm. That went sideways. That was about 15 years ago. These things don't play out well. So you got that whole situation going on there, but it kind of goes back to the point, Dr. Metzler. In that moment, worth that much in Hollywood, you got to balance both that crazy personal stuff going on and then the magnitude of who you are, which, hate to say it on Red and Black, because I know there's a bunch of conservatives that are about to choke on their food or their drink or whatever right now, but that was the beauty of Barack Obama, which is 8 years of that. You never had a situation where he went too far. And see, the Pastor Wright's about to choke on her right now.
This sip of tea's for you.
There you go. But Will Smith should have recognized that. But ironically, somebody that's been, called upon to play Barack Obama in a biopic if it ever comes out.
Yeah, but and also, here's the thing. The thing relative to this is, in order to be able to do that, You have to be willing to work together and have a strong partnership. You ain't got no strong partnership if you got your business all up in the street on Red Table Talk and every place else. Okay, so yeah, you should have taken that moment. You should have really reveled in that moment. That requires partnership. That ain't what we got. And so that therein lies the rub. No pun intended.
Ooh, Dr. Metzler. We need to have a prayer meeting right now, Pastor Wright.
I think so.
I would, in his speech, I believe it was in his speech where he said, my goal is to love others. I think he has this condition that he's a people pleaser.
Mm-hmm.
And if his whole existence, even though he said, I can't please her, like, it's not my job to please her or her to please me, we got to please ourselves. But in his way of pleasing her, he allows her to do whatever she wants to do with no limits in order to feel pleasure and feel alive, at the point of just, in my opinion, dishonoring her marriage. But he's allowing that to happen. And I think it's just really odd for him to be okay with that. And I think that's what's contributing to his insecurities.
I mean, he obviously, Pastor Wright's not okay with it. So, I mean, let me take a step back from the psychoanalysis of Will Smith, because we got thousands of websites doing that right now, and they're doing it probably as well as we are, and most of them worse. But I really want to go into what he lost and what maybe Black America lost, maybe Black Hollywood lost, if anything. Because number one, if he, resigning from the Academy is going to cost him tens of millions of dollars. People may not think it's going to cost him tens of millions of dollars, but that previously mentioned biopic of Barack Obama, if it ended up being a Will Smith that lost 40 pounds to play Barack Obama, how much do you think he would have gotten paid to be in the feature film of the first African-American president? He already got paid to be Muhammad Ali. How much do you think they would have paid him to be Barack Obama? $25 million? $30 million? You think he'll ever be Barack Obama in that movie now? He was the front runner to do it. He won't be anymore. And there are going to be other films like that. This dude played the Blue Genie in Aladdin. He was both the affable character when you needed him to be, and then he was able to play King Richard in Pursuit of Happiness as well. There's a lot of money, which, by the way, and I brought this up previously in private conversation, there's a lot of philanthropy that you're going to be lost as a result of somebody like Will Smith not having access to that capital anymore. And there may be some doors that are shut. Again, people used to talk about how Denzel Washington didn't win an Oscar for Malcolm X, but he had to be a crooked cop in order to win an Oscar. He didn't win an Oscar for Glory, but he can win one being Lorenzo and being a crooked cop with two families all over the place and playing drug dealing in the LAPD. He could do that and win an Oscar. Now you got this situation with Will Smith. Again, Halle Berry, Monsters Ball. She had to do some scandalous stuff in Monsters Ball for her to win that Academy Award. Black Hollywood does not have a good track record with this. Black people could not really afford, from a Black Hollywood perspective, for Will Smith to do what he did. What's the significance long term? Let's throw it out there, all three of you, that you all see. And maybe I'm hyperbole, but we're starting to see the ramifications of a very, almost a prompted move. This wasn't a reactionary move that Will Smith had. That's to me, and I'll start with you, Pastor Wright, that's the thing that I think is most troubling and saddening, is the fact that this did not seem to be his initial reaction. And because he was kind of peer pressured into it by his wife, he's going to lose a lot. And subsequently, we as a community indirectly might lose a lot as well.
That's true. But when you're not in that world, most of the folks watching this and sitting back and armchair commentary and all that kind of stuff, they don't have that kind of insight that you just gave. So for the regular folk that are just watching and thinking, and they're not seeing all those different levels of ramifications. They're not seeing that kind of ripple effect. I do believe that his roles are going to be limited. I think that there are some roles that he will still get. I do think a lot of doors will be shut. I see all those negative things. But the pastor in me says that if, and it's a big if, but if he and his wife can take from this lessons learned that they would do again and that they would absolutely not do again, and can actually do some self-reflecting as they sit there with their little bit thinner bank book about what they should have done differently and how they could have done it, then maybe for other folks, it can be a lesson learned. There's a lot of folks, you know, as you said, I'm in Baltimore. There's a lot of young folks that don't have a male role model in the house at all, much less a good one. So they get what they see on TV, and a lot of it in hood TV is not a good model. So if Will Smith can do what he did and then come back and say, you know what I should have done was, and I realized what I did, I shouldn't have done. This is how I could have handled it. These were some of the things that were happening. If he owns the moment and what made him do what he did the way he did it, I think it could be a healing moment, not just for him, but for a whole bunch of young Black men in this country.
Dr. Metzler, Black people don't usually get an opportunity to come back like that, though, right? I mean, generally speaking, when we make a big blunder, that's the end of it. You know, you get one shining moment, one big opportunity. I brought this up over the last 15 years. I brought it up on national TV and everything else. When Eric Holder brought up issues of race in 2009 and said, I think we're a nation of cowards when it comes to talking about issues of race, and they brought it to the newly minted Barack Obama, 44th president of the United States, with a whole bunch of political capital, he had a moment to pivot it into a meaningful conversation about race during the first Black History Month with the first African-American president. Instead, he basically said, well, I wouldn't have quite said it the way the Attorney General said it, which is basically his way of saying, Eric, what the hell are you doing? I just got here, which shut down the conversation. And by the time Barack Obama, president of the United States, tried to do it in term 2, people were like, you're a lame duck, dude, be quiet. When he tried to talk about Trayvon Martin, no one wanted to listen. When he tried to talk about Freddie Gray, no one wanted to listen. Ferguson happened during his second term. Freddie Gray happened during his second term. My point is, we usually only get one magic moment to use that silver bullet to make something happen. And if we miss it, it's not coming back. So maybe all the Will Smith apologies in the world are going to be great and good, but it still probably is not going to heal his public image. It's probably not going to heal those opportunities. It may not even heal the situation with his spouse. I mean, heck, he was out dancing and celebrating his Oscar win after the ceremony. Jada was not there. His 3 kids were. She was not, apparently. So I don't know if he's going to be able to get that bridge over troubled waters.
It's too soon to tell. It really depends on them. If they want to use this as a moment where they come back to reality and remember and stop reimagining what marriage is really supposed to be, what that covenant is supposed to be.
Hold on, Pastor Wright. I'm going to go to Dr. Metzler first and come back to you two ladies, because I'm asking less about the marriage, because you're doing the marriage healing. I'm talking societally, considering Will Smith's place in society. So Dr. Metzler, you think he's going to have that second chance, and do you think that second chance is going to be a broadening of understanding and perspective that could help Black Hollywood or Black people moving into Hollywood moving forward?
No. And as someone who is represented in a number of capacities, a number of major artists and entertainers, that ship has sailed. So as it relates to his currency, the ship has sailed as it relates to that. Now, his resigning from the Academy is going to cost him a lot. But here's the thing. He decided to do that before they put him out. Whoopi Goldberg was very clear on The View. There will be serious consequences. Can't resign before we put you out. And so I just don't see that as a viable comeback relative to him. I don't see it, because the reality is, as you said, Lenny, oh, how many people actually get that chance? And is the message, you can do what you want so long as you're Will Smith, and that will be acceptable. You do an apology tour, that becomes the issue. And frankly, America's tired of all these apology tours. So that's my view on that.
Sure, I think we're seeing, Whoopi's a great example. Again, well, she got put out for 2 weeks for her comments. What we're seeing is, in the moment, when you're in live TV, you've got producers trying to figure out how to react. They didn't want to put him out right there on live TV, but now that they've had time to think about it, and they're seeing the response, even from other Hollywood actors who are saying it was inappropriate, that speaks volumes. I'm actually shocked that I'm seeing other comedians and actors who are condemning that behavior and that action. So when it's coming from within your colleague circles, that's very powerful, because you'll expect the public to make comments, but when your colleagues are making those comments, that means something.
Well, and the other thing about that too is, you had a number of people saying, "Oh, Chris Rock should sue him." Why would Chris Rock sue him? Chris Rock now is going to make more money on this than anything else. So what? He's going to sue him for a couple $1 million? Why would he want to do that? I mean, I think people just have to be realistic about the way these things work. And yeah, a lot of his colleagues have come out and have said, bruh, no, that's not going to work. The question has become, by the time he's ostracized so much and for so long, at that point, he's going to be too old to get back in the game. And so, moving on.
Rock sold out his very next comedy show.
Yes.
Ticket sales went from $80 to $400 or $800. So
$800.
And all the way to the bank. He's like, I don't need to sue. I don't need to even think about this. In fact, he said, I'm still processing. He could be processing for a while he's buying. He's not worrying about gas prices.
No.
Not at all. My husband
Chris Rock is processing through the lens of Dave Chappelle. It's going to be in Dave Chappelle's Netflix special.
Exactly.
It's going to be like, it's going to be called Dave Chappelle, the smack that launched 1,000 Chris Rocks. I mean, it's going to be some kind of title, and Dave Chappelle's going to go up there and talk about it for 90 minutes.
Yes.
And it's funny. We have friends that are in Atlantic City this weekend. They had bought tickets. My husband's best friend's birthday is this weekend, and they bought tickets to take him to Atlantic City to see Chris Rock. And those tickets were much cheaper a couple weeks ago when they bought them. Other friends that he had told he was going for the weekend to see the show in Atlantic City said, can we get a ticket? Literally 15 times more if there were tickets available was the cost. No exaggeration. And that's in Atlantic City tonight. So he's making bank on it.
Speaking of Chris Rock, is Chris Rock a hero? Because some people put him out there as being a hero for, one, not striking him back, 2, trying to make a joke of it, 3, recognizing the situation for what it was, 4, pivoting into the next topic, into the next award, keeping the show on task, getting off stage, and then not pressing charges, which would have had Will Smith removed in handcuffs, or on top of all that, not even having him removed voluntarily by the Academy. He did none of those things. All he basically said was, I just need to get out of here, apparently. For him to have that in response to what transpired, where he became Robin in the Batman and Robin slap meme for the rest of his life, is he a hero, Priscilla?
He's a superhero. He is a superhero. I don't know how many other people could pivot like that and keep in mind that this night was bigger than himself. It was about all of those actors and actresses in that room who were there for a beautiful evening. I'm surprised. I have mad respect for him for how he handled that, and Strong just stood there and made a joke of it. So, superhero, definitely.
He definitely took the high road, and that would have been hard to do, even if he wanted to play it off. I mean, that slap was seen by a whole bunch of folks, and for him to be able to keep the words going, keep the words flowing, keep the mood light, it took some kind of inner strength. He definitely took the high road, and I don't know if people could have, anyone else that could have done it as smoothly. I think other folks might have been stuck for a minute or two, but he made a decision real split second. It's national TV. It's live. I'm not going out like that. I'm going to keep this moving. Somebody
He was in shock.
high road.
I think he was in shock. I think he had to think for a second, was that for real or was he playing? I don't think he realized that was for real until Will said what he said when he sat down.
Okay, so I got to ask a funny question then. If a 6 foot tall black man comes up and slaps you and you don't know if it's for real or not, or if it was a joke, then I guess to your point, Priscilla, from earlier, he really couldn't have slapped him but so hard if he had to wonder if it was a joke. If someone actually puts their all into it, you're going to know it's not a joke. But I think there was a lot of confusion in the moment there. But again, he definitely took the high road.
That's what happened so fast. I mean, if you go look at the clip again, he walks up, he stops, and then pow. It's not like he's walking up and winding up. Because if he's walking up and winding up, you kind of know what's coming, and then you can brace yourself. He literally walked up, stood there for just a second, and there was, it was almost like a pregnant pause, and then it was just quick. And then he just turned around and walked away. I mean, there's a little bit of shock. I guess one of the questions that was going through my mind while the ladies were talking, Dr. Metzler, was, do you think that Chris Rock recognized the moment racially when he had the restraint? Because there's something to be said about, okay, this is the Oscars. Did he really mean that? Man, I was on this dude's show in 1992 and he's up here smacking me now. It was a G.I. Jane joke. Did I miss something in the joke that might have been offensive? Did I cuss by accident? Do you think he did that and sat there and said, oh, wow, what's the optics going to be if a black comedian goes back after this black Oscar nominee? Do you think that went through Chris Rock's mind in that moment? Because all these things are going through possibly all at once on live TV.
Yeah, I think it was a combination of that. It was a combination of how will this look? This is the first black director of the Oscars. I'm up here hosting. I think it was a combination of this, but let's not forget, this is not Chris's first time at the rodeo relative to, he was a prep school boy who was consistently made fun of, who was consistently beaten up, who was damn near sexually assaulted. And so I think it was all of that kind of rushing in. And at that point, I think he made the most level-headed decision as he could, realizing the historical context, all of those, it was fast. But I think all of those things, it was like, damn, am I in prep school again? And that I think that came into play.
I think he's going to have everybody hates Chris jokes for the rest of his life.
I agree.
He already has them. I've already seen a meme where he's getting smacked and you can see the logo. Everybody hates Chris above the picture. Another thing that was striking to me, and I brought this up in private conversation, I want to throw it out here on Red and Black, is the fact that when they talk about this incident, part of what they were doing as well is they talk about the incident, they talk about the possibility of the arrest for assault. LAPD said that's assault. Chris Rock says, I don't want to press charges. They started listing their ages. Do you all know how old Chris Rock is?
In his 50s.
Okay.
Is he in his 50s?
Pastor Wright?
I have no idea.
Dr. Metzler?
I would say probably 53.
Okay, good black don't crack. So Priscilla's saying maybe he's in his 50s. How old do you think Will Smith is?
pretty close to the same. I think he's in his 50s.
Pastor Wright?
I would say.
Get off Google. I'm asking
okay,
you.
hold on. Wait a
I'm
minute.
trying to see if I could get my phone without you seeing.
Marcella?
I'd have to say he's in his early 50s. I'd say Will Smith is in his early 50s, and that Chris Rock is in his late 50s.
Is he 60? Is he 60 years old?
No. Now y'all going in the wrong direction.
Oh.
Pastor Wright had it right.
Okay.
Chris Rock is 57 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Will Smith is 53 years old. I believe he's 53. I'm almost certain he's 53 and Chris Rock's 57. I mean, look, 2 generations ago, you smack a 57-year-old on stage on live TV, they may have a heart attack from all the Marlboros that they've smoked over their life and the bad diet that they've eaten as Americans. So think about 2 men in their 50s, one walking up and smacking the other. Like, I mean, he's not that far away from 60 years old. And the optics of that, to me, then take it into the context of quote unquote toxic masculinity from a black male perspective. That doesn't look good. We've come from a history, and I'm going to go to the other black man on here first on this. We come from a history where they don't respect black men as men, where black men historically were still called boys and we're seen as being younger. They make our 12-year-olds out to be 23 years old, and they criminalize them up in age, and they do that with our girls as well. But when we hit adulthood, they make us as if we're always preteens or adolescents. And then you have these men that are approaching 60 have this episode on one of the highest platforms that you can have in the entertainment industry. That seems to be something that's overlooked in part of the damage that came out of this whole scenario as well.
Well, yeah, and it led Judge Janine to make among one of the most asinine comments that she's ever made, which is, just so you know, the Oscars is not the hood. Janine, really?
Wow.
Really? I mean, we're not even talking, you're not even talking about, the hood doesn't even come into the conversation. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Because there's 350 million reasons why Will Smith has nothing to do with the hood.
The hood is not even relevant.
He moved from West Philadelphia to live with his uncle and auntie in Bel Air 30 years ago.
You can take the boy out of Philly, but you can't take the Philly out of the boy.
Thank you. I'm glad you said it.
Yeah, but says
right.
the woman who was accused of trying to have her husband killed by a mobster. But I digress.
Error. Yeah, go ahead and drink that because people don't want to know about that story because it's out there. It's out there. So, Pastor Wright, we were talking about the restraint that Chris Rock had, and we were talking about how this all played out, and Will Packer being the first African American director of the Oscars, and he actually went on Good Morning America on Friday morning to talk about the fact that no, this is what Chris Rock did. He actually got in a way to save a lot of this. What's interesting as well is, I guess the last thing I want to talk about is there's going to probably be, and it's not going to just be the Denzel Washingtons and the Tyler Perrys of the world that are going to have to polish this up as black men. But if you start thinking about what Chris Rock did in that moment as well, what is going to be the role of Black Hollywood to deal with this? Or do they have a role at all? I mean, Pastor, there's an argument to be made that everybody's on their own. Hollywood is a dog-eat-dog world. You have your friends until you're up for the same role and it's worth $15 million, then you ain't friends no more. But this seems to be something that's past that, where they're going to have to be some people that step up and do some extra work to put a different type of image out here to do some damage control moving forward for the black image, even if it's not for what the former image of what Will Smith was moving forward.
So, yeah, I mean, I think this is an opportunity that was created where yes, there will be a need for some damage control, but also it'll be an opportunity for growth. Again, throughout history, there are issues, there are things that happen, and it's how you pull the good out of a bad thing that happened. And I think that this opportunity provides a platform for good to come out of it. I really do. I think that if people step forward and they talk about how things should have been handled, how they could have been handled, some of the issues that may have been going on with mental health, that's been something that people have been talking about since the pandemic, and what may have led to that. I think there's really a platform and an opportunity for good to come out of it. Will it? I hope so. Do I think it can? I absolutely do.
Yeah,
And I think that's how we have to look at it. That's what we have to do. That's how we have to move it forward. If not, it's just a spectacle that happened.
you know, I think it's going to have to take all hands on deck. I don't think it's just the responsibility of Black men in Hollywood. I saw a lot of posts of people upset with Denzel Washington and his reactions, and some of the other actors, even though he did pull Will Smith aside and try to give him some advice a little bit too late. But it's also going to be a self-reflection for Black women. You know, when we see some of the Black women's responses say, "Oh yeah, Will should have, he was standing up for his woman." They're encouraging that. They're in their mind, they're saying to Black men, "This is what I expect from you. I expect for you to be physically violent. I expect for you, the definition of honoring me is to get physical with another human being." And we're seeing, you know, the rise of crime in general in America. We're seeing the rise of fighting. I'm a school teacher. I've seen so many fights from recovering from COVID and people being locked up for 2 years. It is not a healthy response of interacting with other people. So it's going to take all of us to say, this is unacceptable. There's a consequence to that. It's not going to be effective until he feels the burn. And maybe, to use a legal, you know, phrase, because I always try to sound smart with Dr. Metzler in the room, the recidivism rate for someone like Will, he bet not do anything like this ever again, because yes, we as conservatives don't like to play the race game, but the reality is, he is up there representing Black men. He represented a Black father who did great things with his daughters. And so he has to own that, and he has to fix that. He is the one that needs to fix that.
That's the final word. Go Pastor Wright real quick, and then Dr. Metzler before we got to go.
There's an interesting point you said about how women took it. Women that said, okay, he was supporting his spouse.
Some women, not all women. Some. Because I felt like at first, when I first saw it at first glance, because I only saw a snippet, that he was standing up for his wife. After seeing more of it, that's different. But I think this, again, is an opportunity. We got a lot of women that are wives that never learned how to be or what that means. And I think, again, it's a learning opportunity. You made some really good points about how women need to kind of take care, extra care of that fragile male ego, I believe was how you put it. And be able to lift folk up and strengthen them. And I think, again, this could be an opportunity for some of that is needed in so many areas to happen. And maybe that catalyst that was needed. Dr. Metzler, final point.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, it's an opportunity to be a teachable moment, but we also have to be realistic about who we're dealing with, the atmosphere we're dealing. You know, we're not dealing with, you know, somebody who is, you know, a person of the people. I think we have to be very clear about that. I think it's an opportunity. I don't think, however...
Hold on. Who's not a person of the people? Will Smith or Jada Pinkett Smith? Who's not a person of the people?
Will, Jada, or Chris?
Jada, because she's been separate, but I would say that Will Smith has made a career over the last 20 years of kind of being able to connect to a little bit of everybody, because let's just be honest, he can't win that award playing King Richard if he didn't resonate with some Black audiences. Now, granted, getting jiggy with it and all the other stuff was not playing to that
And-
and some of the other movies.
No-
but there's
no
certain
question.
things he had to play that resonated.
No question about that. However, did Jada say, you better call Tyrone? Call him? I mean, it is the conversation that we're dealing, and oftentimes we don't like to talk about socioeconomic class. We limit the discussion to race. Yeah, race is part of that makeup, but so is socioeconomic class. And I think we have to be mindful of and engage in that conversation. That's the reality. Jenny was talking consistently about how she's Jenny from the block. That's cute, but are you really? And
by that point in time, she wasn't. And to your point, and I got to wrap it up to your point, I mean, Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith have not lived the lives they were born into.
That's what I'm saying.
30 years. I mean, Jada Pinkett first came on A Different World in, I think, 1990 or 1991. Will Smith had his own TV show by 1989 or 1990. And that was after he won, people forget, he won a Grammy, or he really went into the television career, which then went into the movie career.
Yes.
So there was a lot to unpack. I'm sure there's more to unpack. I'm sure other people will be unpacking it. But Pastor Wright, thank you for joining us. And
thank you.
Jeff said this week, Dr. Metzler, I know you're going to keep yourself busy, Princella, as well. Folks, we're running out of time, but I do want to say, keep your heads up, keep moving forward, keep praying for the people in Ukraine, and pray for peace. In the meanwhile, we love you. We'll talk to you again soon. TCNGB. Take care and God bless. Peace.
Peace. All right. Thank you all so much.
Fun.
Yes.
Hi, Dr. Wright. I followed you on Facebook.
Oh wow! I your career